This is the place for history on the KY3 Digital Desk, except today we are not at the desk. We're in Independence, Missouri, outside the Truman Library and Museum. Let's go inside and meet some of the people. We're here with Azalea Michelle Whitley of the Truman Library and Museum, and we're talking about the mural here, Thomas Hart Benton mural. You're standing in front of it, and we have two Missouri sons, two Missourians getting involved in this. But just because they're from the same state doesn't mean they're buddies, does it?
That is correct. They were born around the same time, within only just a few years of each other. But Harry Truman definitely had a different career path than Thomas Hart Benton. Thomas Hart Benton's family actually wanted him to study law. They wanted him to study politics, but from a very young age, he showed a talent in art, and so his mother definitely nourished that, and she encouraged him to study art.
So how do they come together? Because they're on these completely different paths.
Yes, that's correct. The way they came together is whenever the library was built and it opened in 1957, this area was blank and this was the main entrance to the library. So when you would come in, this was pretty plain. There wasn't really much here. And so the director decided, hey, we need to maybe add a little color, add something here. And so he talked to the Archivist of the United States of America, and together they went and visited Thomas Hart Benton in his studio in Westport. And they went and looked at his work, and then they said, yeah, we really do need a piece of his work here. And so he was chosen, and like you said, Harry S. Truman was really not a fan of his work, and one of the reasons is because he did paint political scenes. He had completed the mural at the Missouri State Capitol, and in that mural there's some political people and just politics in general, and Harry S. Truman wasn't really that interested in Thomas Hart Benton's subject matter, but yeah, they ended up choosing him to do this mural.
So you would think it's going to be in a Truman library. We might get this big, majestic picture of Truman or his accomplishments, maybe the Berlin airlift, maybe scenes from World War II or the end of World War II. We wind up with this. What does Truman think about this?
Yes, so they discussed what the painting would be about. Thomas Hart Benton and Harry S. Truman, they met and they wanted to discuss what the mural will look like. And Harry S. Truman, you know, being a historian, being a reader, he wanted to show history, the local history. And Thomas Hart Benton, as the artist, you know, they had to kind of come with a compromise of what he could execute and then what Harry S. Truman wanted. And so after several discussions going back and forth, they decided on choosing the founding of Independence. Independence at the time was considered the gateway to the West. It was the last city before you entered the Great Frontier. And so they decided to show independence and the founding of the West.
What does this depict in terms of independence and what it meant to the West?
Sure. So what this depicts, whenever Thomas Hart Benton decided to paint this, he did not, these are not specific people. These represent, for example, these Native Americans, they represent the tribes that would have been here around that time in the 1820s, 30s. So these are not individuals. These just represent, as well as all of the plants and the trees that you see, the rolling hills. This is what would have been part of the West. Thomas Hart Benton actually traveled. He did a lot of research before he painted the mural. He went to Oklahoma to see some of the Native Americans that were living there. He traveled to the Great Plains to see what kind of plants were there. And so that's why you see cactus and things like that, because he just wanted to include the Great Plains, the Rocky Mountains, and part of Independence. He wanted to include all that in a mural.
And some of these scenes are very important to the westward expansion. So it looks like up above here, that depicts, hey, I need supplies before I head out west. Is that what he's trying to say there?
Yes, here what you see is traders. So some of the people that were going out west, before they were going out west, they had to first gather the materials that they needed. They wanted to go fully prepared. And so you see this man trading with one of the Native Americans. You see him holding a knife. And Thomas Hart-Benton actually had to research what did a knife at that time look like, because he was, you know, it would be very different than a knife that you would see in the 1950s, 1960s.
So these guys aren't like buddies, and this is happening while Truman is alive. This is being painted. So does Truman come in here on a regular basis and give him the business or some thoughts on what's happening?
You know what? Once he began painting, after they agreed on what the subject matter would be, after all of the sketches were approved, Harry S. Truman just kind of let him do his thing. He didn't micromanage him. And sometimes that does happen when an artist is commissioned to do a piece. Usually the people who commission them, they want to make sure that it's what they wanted. But no, Harry S. Truman did not do that. He just trusted him to do what he does best, which is paint.
Did Truman actually ever pick up a brush and get involved?
He was allowed at the very early stages of the painting. He was allowed to paint just a little piece way up there in the sky.
In the sky?
Yes.
That was it?
Way up there.
Did it have to be touched up?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yes.
Okay, so he did actually, is there a story behind that? Did he come in and say,
Yeah,
I'd like to put a brush to the wall?
Yeah, I think he just kind of said, okay, fine, come up here and then I'll let you paint just a little bit of the sky. And
Yeah.
so he climbed up, you know, by then he was, I believe in his 70s, and so he climbed up the scaffolding that was built here for Thomas Hart-Benton to paint.
Yeah. And when art historians talk about this mural, what do they say about it in terms of the context of?
Yeah, so that's very important. A lot of times whenever artists are commissioned to do important pieces, you know, they want a world leader. They want somebody who is very important in history. But this, with Thomas Hart-Benton, was, he was a Midwest regionalist or an American regionalist, depending on which class you take. And so basically, people like Thomas Hart-Benton, John Stuart Curry, Grant Wood, that painted here in this area, they painted normal Americans. They painted farmers, they painted, they really championed the Midwestern family, the Midwestern values. And so that's what makes this mural so great. It's that public space where people can come in and view it, and it's accessible to people. And that's the point of a mural. It's not meant to be collected by a wealthy collector and placed in a beautiful, wealthy home where only a few people can enjoy it. This is meant to be enjoyed by everybody.
I want to thank you for joining us on The Place for History and sharing your knowledge about this wonderful mural at the Truman Library and Museum.
Thank you. I definitely, as somebody who studied art in college, I definitely just feel every day I'm extremely grateful that I get to work here and see this beautiful mural.